The WNBA and many of its affiliates seem unable or unwilling to hide their blatant disrespect toward Caitlin Clark. Since entering the league as a rookie, she's faced constant undermining. Despite leading her team to a top 3 seed, posting historic stats, and finishing third in MVP voting, she was still ranked only 15th among WNBA players. Even though she was clearly the standout rookie and eventually won Rookie of the Year, she spent most of the season ranked behind Angel Reese in rookie power rankings. Team USA snubbed her for the Paris Olympics, ignoring the fact that she's arguably the best point guard in the league. The list of those who've disrespected her is endless. From WNBA legends and media voices who shape public opinion, to players who have taken their aggression to the court, some even bordering on physical assault. Clark endured more flagrant fouls last season than the rest of the league combined, yet critics still dismiss any claims of malicious intent. But now, there's undeniable proof exposing the league's worst-kept secret. WNBA players resent Caitlin ClarkIt. That's no longer an opinion. It's a fact. Everyone with 2 eyes already knew it, but now it's undeniable. As we near the midpoint of this WNBA season, All-Star voting has revealed the truth loud and clear. Fans, media, and players all get a say in who makes the All-Star roster, but the results are shocking. Unsurprisingly, Caitlin Clark dominated the fan vote. With nearly 1.3 million votes, she not only led all players but also set a new record, securing her spot as a starter and team captain, all thanks to the fans. It's a reminder that All-Star Weekend is meant for the fans. The whole point of letting them vote is so they can see their favorite players on the court. That's what makes the players' reaction all the more selfish. If Clark's supporters hadn't shown up in huge numbers, there's a real chance she would have been completely snubbed because she didn't get that same recognition from the players, media, or coaches. In fact, far from it. Fan voting placed Caitlin Clark first, followed by Paige Bueckers, no surprises, since they're the 2 most popular guards in women's basketball. But things got interesting with the media vote, where Allisha Gray took the top spot. She's having a standout season, averaging 17 points per game for the Atlanta Dream, who currently sits second in the Eastern Conference. Sabrina Ionescu came in at number 2, which isn't surprising. The Liberty opened the season 9-0. She's been in the MVP conversation and is posting a career high in points. As one of the league's top guards, her place near the top is more than fair. Caitlin Clark was ranked 3rd by the media, a bit generous, but still within reason. It's true that Clark has had a challenging sophomore year. She's missed nearly half of the Fever's games due to injuries. It hasn't matched last season's production. Statistically, she's averaging fewer points and rebounds, and her overall efficiency has taken a hit. Her biggest struggles have come on the road, where she's shooting just 33% from the field and a shocking 142 from 3, averaging only 11.8 points per game. At home, however, she's looked like a completely different player. So claiming she was a guaranteed All-Star starter based solely on her performance would be misleading. That said, Clark hasn't been bad. She leads all guards in assists, 2nd overall in the WNBA, behind only Alyssa Thomas. She's also top 10 in steals, and top 12 in points per game, ranking 5th among guards, so while 3rd might feel a touch high, it's not unjustifiable. And if someone wants to argue that Paige Bueckers has had a better season so far, that's a valid discussion. The top 3 to 5 players on this list are fairly interchangeable, and Caitlin Clark reasonably fits anywhere within that range. But what's absolutely absurd and undeniably disrespectful is the WNBA players' vote. It confirms what many have suspected all along. There is resentment toward Caitlin Clark, driven by jealousy and envy, and the players are making no effort to hide it. How can she be the number 1 vote-getter among fans, number 3 in the media rankings, yet somehow fall all the way to 9th among guards in the player vote? Not 9th overall, 9th, just at her position. According to that vote, she wouldn't even qualify as an All-Star reserve. That's outrageous. To fully grasp how ridiculous that is, we have to examine the 8 guards ranked ahead of her. At number 1 was Allisha Gray, consistent with the media's view, fair enough. Sabrina Ionescu was 2nd in both the media and player votes though, surprisingly, only 5th among fans. Nothing seems too off with those 2. They're respected in the basketball world even if they lack Clark's popularity. This kind of discrepancy between fan love and peer respect isn't uncommon. It happens in the NBA, too. But Clark, falling to 9th among players, is not just unusual, it's a statement. But where things start to get incredibly hypocritical is when you look beyond the top 2. Take Skylar Diggins-Smith from Seattle, for example. She received little fan support, coming in at 9th in fan voting, yet was ranked 4th by the media and 3rd by the players. To be clear, Diggins is having a solid season, averaging 18.2 points per game. This isn't to say she's not a great player, but here's the thing: she's averaging the same number of points as Caitlin Clark, and when you look beyond scoring, Clark actually outperforms her across the board in traditional stats. In rebounds, it's 5.0 to 2.0 in Clark's favor, significant difference. In assists, Clark again leads by a wide margin, 8.9 to 5.9. She also averages more steals, 1.6 to 1.3, and both players average 0.7 blocks per game. So, in nearly every major statistical category, Clark holds the edge. That said, stats aren't the whole story. Diggins has been more efficient, has better shooting splits, stayed healthier, played more games, and is on a team with a better record. So no, I'm not arguing that Caitlin Clark has had a better season than Skylar Diggins. I'm not even saying she's had as good of a season. But the way these rankings are being handed out makes the double standard impossible to ignore. Just trying to understand the criteria these WNBA players are using to cast their votes, because if you watch this unfold until the end, it simply doesn't add up. For players like Alicia Gray, Sabrina Ionescu, and Skylar Diggins-Smith, the justification seems to be a combination of individual stats and team success. But that standard suddenly falls apart at the number 4 spot, which is a tie between two players. First is Paige Bueckers, who's having a phenomenal rookie season. Fresh off an NCAA championship, she came into the WNBA as the number 1 pick, and has more than lived up to the hype. She's a near lock for Rookie of the Year, averaging 18.2 points, 5.5 assists, 4.1 rebounds, 1.7 steals, and 0.9 blocks per game. Statistically, when you line her numbers up next to Caitlin Clark's, they're pretty comparable. It evens out. But here's where the hypocrisy shows. Earlier, when comparing Clark to Diggins, Clark had better stats, but the deciding factor was Diggins' team having a better record. So then why does Paige rank higher than Clark? When her team, the Dallas Wings, is dead last in the Western Conference with a 3-16 record. Yes, Paige has been more efficient, but her team's performance completely contradicts the logic applied earlier, and it gets worse. Also, tied for 4th is Natasha Cloud, and in her case, statistical production is thrown completely out the window. She's averaging just 10.1 points, 6.2 assists, and 3.7 rebounds, numbers that Caitlin Clark clearly surpasses across the board. The defense argument doesn't hold much weight either. Clark is averaging more steals and blocks per game. Again, I understand that stats aren't everything, but if we're going to make team success and efficiency the benchmark for some players, it has to be applied consistently. Otherwise, it's just bias disguised as evaluation. Yes, there's more to defense than just steals. But claiming Natasha Cloud has been a better player than Caitlin Clark this season is like saying Jrue Holiday is better than Steph Curry. Defense, maybe half the game, but when we evaluate players, we rarely treat it as a true 50-50th split. And we can't ignore the context either. Natasha Cloud plays for the New York Liberty, the most stacked team in the WNBA. They've got Sabrina Ionescu, one of the top 3 guards in the league. Breanna Stewart, a multi-time champion, MVP, and one of the greatest players ever in her prime. And Jonquel Jones, another former MVP and last year's Finals MVP, on a team that loaded. Cloud is arguably the 4th best player at best. So how does someone who's the 4th best player on her own team get ranked 4th among all guards in the league by her peers? Yes, the Liberty have a better record than the Indiana Fever, but they've only won 3 more games, and that's with Caitlin Clark missing half the season due to injuries. So someone please explain the logic here. Paige Bueckers is ranked over Caitlin, despite similar stats and a much worse team record, but Natasha Cloud is ranked over Caitlin solely because of team success, while ignoring stats altogether. The inconsistency is glaring. You can't keep changing the criteria just to justify leaving Caitlin Clark out. Would you believe me if I said it somehow gets worse? Because we've only covered the top 4. Remember, Caitlin Clark was ranked 9th. Next on the list is Kelsey Mitchell, Clark's own teammate on the Indiana Fever. And let me be clear, I have nothing negative to say about Kelsey Mitchell. She's a great player. But since she and Caitlin play for the same team, you can't use team record as a differentiating factor. Statistically, aside from scoring where, Kelsey has a slight edge. Clark outperforms her in every major category. And if you ask anyone who the best player on the Fever is, we all know what the answer will be. Then comes the most baffling selection of all, Brittany Sykes. What's the argument for her being ahead of Clark? She's averaging 17.9 points, 4.6 assists, 3.9 rebounds, 1.1 steals, and 0.3 blocks. Once again, Clark has better numbers across the board. And what about team success? The Washington Mystics are currently the 9th seed with a losing record. So in this case, Clark not only has the better stats, she's also on the better team. Yet, somehow, Brittany Sykes was ranked 7th in player voting. And as for the 8th player ranked ahead of Caitlin, completely anonymous. No significant buzz, no standout numbers. Just more evidence that whatever criteria the players are supposedly using, it's being inconsistently and we don't even know who the 8th player ranked ahead of Caitlin Clark is, because she didn't receive a high enough weighted score across all categories fan vote. media vote, and player vote for the WNBA to even bother naming her publicly. No one knows who she is, but her inclusion is clearly just another excuse to push someone ahead of Caitlin. Let's be honest, this player vote has turned into a popularity contest. And here's something important to understand when WNBA players fill out their all-star ballots. They're not ranking a top 10 list. They're likely picking 3, maybe 4, or 5 guards. So for Caitlin to land at 9th in the player vote, the majority of WNBA players must have left her off their ballots entirely. But look, this isn't propaganda. I'm going to be fair. Caitlin Clark probably doesn't deserve to be a starter in the All-Star game this year. She hasn't been one of the top 2 guards, and I'm happy to concede that Alicia Gray, Sabrina Ionescu, and Paige Buchers have earned those spots. Do I think they're better players than Caitlin? No, but the best ability is availability, and they've been healthy, productive, and crucial to their team's success. Personally, I'd rank Caitlin at 4th. That still makes her an all-star, just not a starter, and I'm fine with that based on this season. What I'm not fine with is using her slow start by her own high standards as an excuse to snub her entirely, because even this version of Caitlin Clark is still better than most guards in the WNBA. Yes, Caitlin hasn't been as efficient this season and has missed games, but there aren't 8 guards in the WNBA better than this version of her right. Now, Rachel Dieta made a great point on Twitter. If Caitlin is truly the 9th best guard in the league, then why were players guarding her like that in last season's All-Star game? They were picking her up full court. Remember, the All-Star game features the best players at every position: Sabrina Ionescu, Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson, Araiko Gunboel, Angel Resall, top-tier stars. So if Caitlin is only 9th among guards, what does that make her overall? The 15th or 20th best player in the league. If that were true, why does she command so much defensive attention? Why? If Kelsey Mitchell is the Fever's best player, isn't she the focal point of opposing scouting reports? Why do teams consistently send their best defender to guard Caitlin instead of Mitchell? They ranked Natasha Cloud at number 4 because of her defense, yet when the Fever face the Liberty, Cloud spends the entire game shadowing Caitlin, not Kelsey. Watch any game this season, and it's clear. Opponents build entire defensive schemes to stop Caitlin. She's blitzed, constantly coming off screens, double-teamed, trapped. Even facing box N1, defense is essentially the Steph Curry treatment, and she's still putting up some of the best numbers for her position while leading her team to a respectable record. And when it comes to team success, there's another important factor we can't forget. Who won the Commissioner's Cup again? That's right, the Indiana Fever. So, if we're talking about winning, Caitlin Clark's team literally took home the title. While the Commissioner's Cup isn't as prestigious as the WNBA Championship, it's still a major tournament with a $500,000 prize for the winning team. And trust me, that's a serious incentive. No WNBA team is turning down $500,000. Especially when salaries are constantly a hot topic. It was a competitive tournament, and Caitlin Clark, along with the Fever, defeated the Minnesota Lynx featuring MVP candidate Nafisa Collier and Team USA head coach Cheryl Reeve to claim the cup. So, say what you want about Caitlin's slow start to the season, but now she's a champion. Considering her peers voted her the 9th best guard, it's safe to say Caitlin was right when she celebrated confidently. But here's the thing, this isn't really about basketball. These WNBA players clearly don't believe what they say about Caitlin Clark, because if they did, they wouldn't guard her as aggressively or target her like they do on the court. This player vote was just another chance for them to sideline her and prove once again the league's worst-kept secret. They don't like her, they don't accept her. Last season, many tried to deny it or make excuses. But now it's clear, obvious, and undeniable. And in doing so, they only embarrassed and exposed themselves, and for what? Because Caitlin Clark won the fan vote, securing her starting spot in the All-Star game anyway. She is by far the WNBA's most popular player that was always going to happen. So, why even bother? What were they really trying to achieve here other than sending a message? If you're going to expose your true feelings and intentions, at least do it for something meaningful. But let them stay on their side, because the Fever aren't going anywhere. Believe me, Caitlin Clark will be using this as fuel moving forward. And remember, while everyone's talking about the negatives, the Fever are still the 3rd seed in the East. They've proven this season that they can beat the best teams. And it wasn't until after the All-Star break last year that they really clicked and went on that run. If they're this good already, with Clark missing significant time and not at her best, imagine what happens when she fully fires on all cylinders, the player we all know she can be. I'll tell you, it's going to get scary for the rest of the WNBA and the Eastern Conference. If you've made it this far, drop your thoughts and feedback in the comments. What do you think is the real reason WNBA players are hating on Caitlin Clark? I want to hear your take. And hey, if you're still here and want to support one of the few genuine voices making basketball content, no AI fluff, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It's free and helps the channel grow. Check out our last video about Caitlin Clark by clicking the box in the middle of your screen. With that, it's DKM signing off. Until next time, peace and peace.